Last time on Suit Up.
We printed and assembled the pattern poster. We added some special notes to see who was paying attention. Then we cut out all the parts and transferred them to our foam.
Today on Suit Up, we're going to be finishing up all the pattern pieces and cutting them out of foam. So, get your knives ready, get your replacement blades ready, get your contact cement ready to go, and get your foam, because it is time to put some stuff together. You ready? Here we go. How do they do that, like, cheesy smile at the end? I even have a hard time doing it myself.
Hello, nice lady who's also a robot. Hello, touch.
Hi, I'm Dustin, and I've been making tokusatsu props and costumes for over 10 years. The costume work I did led to some pretty interesting opportunities. Now, I want to share my tips and help guide you while you make your own props and costumes. If you're ready to make some cool stuff, then welcome to Suit Up.
I do like we did with the pattern before, we're going to cut out these huge chunks so we have easier parts to work with. Just be very careful not to be cutting into the pattern. You're just trying to get some of these pieces free. That's all you're trying to do. Again, try to conserve some of this foam because you may be reusing some of it later. It's always a good idea to keep foam scrap around. You never know when you might need something.
I recommend watching this video in full screen at the highest resolution you can, so you can see the most of what I'm doing.
Now this blade's already getting dull, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap it out before I start doing any of the serious cutting. I'll leave this big strip for later, we set that up there. So, this bottom half connects right here with this part, which is sitting right here on this. We'll come back to this later because we're gonna have to cut that. But we're gonna go ahead and make a 45-degree angle cut so you know exactly what I mean by that. First, we're gonna make just a regular, clean cut, doing the 90-degree on the edge next to it. Remember to cut inside the black line so that it's matching with the way that your pattern was traced. Cut away that extra chunk. We'll save this for later. We might end up using one of these as a squeegee for the glue. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the other side where I know there's a flat edge there too. Just gonna go ahead and make a nice flat cut straight down. We're gonna cut away the excess. All right, now, the 45-degree angle cut. All I have to do is just angle your blade at a 45-degree angle towards this part. Remember, yellow highlighter means angle towards that part. So we're gonna angle this towards the part, and we're gonna just very carefully drag the blade through as it's angled. Try not to go too crazy over. You don't wanna make a 60-degree angle. You just wanna make a nice, simple 45. So then you can make two nice, clean edges meet each other later. All right, I'm gonna pull these apart and you should hopefully see what I mean. See how I made a 45-degree angle all the way down? Hopefully you should be able to see that. And see how this one's sitting outwards? This is what the outwards one would look like. It's essentially doing the same cut, but facing the other direction. This way, it's now a 45-degree angle. We're gonna make another 45-degree angle on the other part. I'm gonna very roughly cut this out and the next part so y'all can see exactly what I'm talking about. Just like the pattern earlier, you're gonna rotate the part as you're cutting it. Be very careful. Angle cuts and rounded cuts on foam can be tricky, especially if your blade is not sharp. If your blade is not sharp, you're not gonna get very far. So again, always have a sharp blade. Always, 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 always have a sharp blade. I know some folks that have started to make a habit of switching out a blade every single time they finish a part. I think that's a little bit overkill. But see how clean these edges are coming out? They're coming out really nice and smooth. That's what we want. Okay, so now this part's done. We're gonna set this over here, and I'm gonna start cutting this next part to finish the demonstration for the V cut and the angle cuts. So, same thing as last time. Take care of the flat edges first. This one's a flat edge on the inside. All right, so this whole part right here is an angled cut. So I'm gonna angle towards the part, and we're gonna rotate ever so slightly to make sure that all of this is getting cut at the correct 45-degree angle. sure to pull the blade all the way through. Peel it away. There we go. Nice, another 45-degree angles going straight down. So, registration marks example 2. These lines are supposed to match up. They kind of don't really. Not until you start to force them to, but they will. All you gotta do is just line up one part that looks good with the glue, attach it, and then start slowly but surely start tacking in parts. Now, you don't want to start gluing these parts together first. These actually connect to in a couple other places, and it's really important that this gets connected to the center part first. The center part has another right angle V cut on the back, so that will rotate this up into the bottom of the jaw right here. And this will actually match up with a few of the jaw parts. So, save this part right here for the last part of the top dome helmet, okay? Don't worry about the crusher. The crusher is still technically part of the jaw, so we'll save that later. But this is important. We're gonna set this one to the side. I just wanted to demonstrate those angles right there. If this is top, this is bottom, this has a V cut. I'm just gonna go ahead and do a angled cut towards it now. This is a great time to remind you, always be looking at your parts so you know what one's gonna be what kind of cut. Always, always, always. All right, there's my 45-degree angle cut. Now it's time to do all the regular cuts. Oh, that almost was a mistake. I forgot to do my registration marks. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't stress this enough. Even though I've been doing this for years, I still make mistakes, but I'm lucky enough to be able to catch them before it gets too crazy, and I've learned enough tricks on how to fix it. Always remember to mark your registration marks. It will be a nightmare if you do not have them. I'm gonna leave the ear for later. This is gonna be one of the later parts we do too. This is like second to last before we put on this part. Did a nice 45-degree angle cut on that side too. So all these parts can be attached now. There's one thing I want to do though, make it very, very clear. On the front part, this little tail, we're not going to be gluing this part at all. We're not going to be gluing on the inside of the eyes either. We're not even going to be gluing up top on this part as well. For right now, we are only focused on gluing this edge to this edge and this edge to this edge. Okay, we're not gluing any of the other bottom stuff. So if you want to get a better idea of what we're gluing, everywhere that's touching right now is going to get glued together. So it's going to be this side and this side. So time to break out the contact cement. I use the squeeze bottle. It's a lot easier to apply. I also use a little squeegee made out of EVA foam to push it around. You could also use the brush on the inside of the can. This is the new way. They used to have bottles too. The bottles were made out of glass. This is actually a lot better than the glass. The brush is a little bit stronger than the old plastic one too. Also, reminder, if you're using contact cement, wear a respirator. If you're not in a well-ventilated area, please use a respirator. Do another 45-degree angle cut right here. And that's so that I can make a little squeegee to move some stuff around. So I'm gonna glue this middle part first, then the back part, then the front part. So then I can go from back to front. And as I let this part dry and this part dry, I'll be finishing up gluing this one. And then as I'm attaching these two parts, and then starting to attach these, this one will be dry. You'll see what I mean in a second. You have to let your contact cement dry. You have to let it dry. So I'm starting with the back part, letting it pop through just like a little bit. Just a few little beads here or there, a little string here or there. Try not to get too overzealous with it. You really don't need too much. You may need to do a second coat if you don't feel like there's a strong enough adhesion or bond to the foam. But yeah, you just want to do a nice, thin, even coat on the edge of the foam. That's it. Try not to get any excess up on the edge if you can. It's really hard not to, but try not to get any up there. It'll just make a big glob and it'll be harder to clean up later when we have to clean these seams. So hopefully you can see there's a little bit of strings coming through. That means that the solvent in there is evaporating. And now I'm adding new layers as I'm cleaning up this excess by taking the excess and putting it back on. Just a few beads here or there. You ain't gotta do crazy a lot. Contact cement when it's fresh is really loose, but if you let it sit for a long while, it will start to dry out and it'll become a lot more rubbery. And like I said, it's hard to get rid of some of the excess once you get it on there. So like try to do as little extra glue as possible. Good news is that this part has 2 edges that I need to glue. So what I could do is I could scoop from this side, move it all up onto my little squeegee I made right here. See how it's all built up on there? Flip over the part to the side I need. Now I can start applying some of the same glue that was excess as its own fresh batch glue on this side. You're gonna start to see some of this Sharpie mark starting to fade away too on the edges. Try not to worry too much. It's just the acetone inside this, or the mineral spirits inside this that's breaking down the chemicals in there. It won't affect anything, trust me. But that looks like a good, even-ish coat. I'm gonna put a small little dab here or there, just to make sure we got good coverage. Oh, too much. That's all right, we're gonna use the excess. Try not to get too much of this on your cutting mat either, because it'll make it gross. This is a new one, so like that drop that's on there now is the first of many. All right, cool. Now, we're gonna add glue onto this edge real quick. And then hopefully by the time we're done adding glue onto this one, the first couple of parts will be dry and ready to be attached. All right, I think that should be good. I think we have a nice, good, thin, even coat all the way down it. I'm gonna let that dry. I'm gonna clean up this little bit of excess that dropped down here. I'm gonna apply it to this little edge that was worrying me a little bit. Now, it's okay to get some of this on your fingers. Try not to like eat it though. So definitely wash your hands after you work with this stuff. It's very important you do that. Great way to break this stuff up is this material called Gojo. It has a pumice on the inside of it. Really does help. But also acetone and alcohol also works. And you just rub your fingers together and make a little ball and get it off. But always clean your fingers after you do this kind of work. All right, I'm gonna touch this edge to see how it looks. You don't want strings, you just want tackiness. So let's see if there's just tacky or if there's gonna be strings popping up. You hear that? Tacky, that's what you want. So we're gonna check the other side and see if it's ready to go. Mostly tacky. Oh, you see that stringing? See that stringing that's happening right there? There's a little glob sitting on the other edge. I'm gonna push it over. It might reactivate some of it, but it'll also form like a secondary bond of glue right there. I feel the rest of it. It's about ready. If not, shake it around, give it a wave. Hopefully it'll start cleaning up those edges and drying up. Nice, already dried up. So here we go. So there's a corner right here where my pinky is. That corner meets with this corner right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and make it sit right in there. I'm gonna try to get these edges to be flush with each other. So I'm gonna use my thumb as a guide. I'm just gonna slowly but surely press these edges together. Now notice how these two lines aren't really quite matching just yet? This is gonna be a curve that we have to do. So I'm gonna pull the left part and push the right part. Also, we'll try to keep these two edges nice and flush with each other until they meet and I make them kiss. Now they're kissed together and now they're stuck together, and see how it's starting to form a curve? This is what's called a dart. A dart's a line that's been cut into a pattern in order for you to make a curve later on. So here we go, we're gonna do the same thing up here. It's gonna be a little bit different though, because this one gets pulled further away. So we're gonna keep tucking, pushing the right part, pulling the left part. Also trying to make sure that these edges are staying nice with each other and meeting. The cleaner you get these edges, the better, because we're gonna have to sand these down and we're gonna have to fill in the gaps with some kind of filler. I probably will be using Quick Seal, and I'll show you all how to use that here very shortly. All right, there you have it. That's the first seam done on the helmet. Now you can see it's already starting to form a curve. Now this is gonna be the back earpiece, so like it's gonna be a little bit wonky for a little bit longer. Let's check this side, let's see if it's tacky. Tacky, good. Let's check this side, make sure it's tacky, no strings. Oh, a little bit stringing up at the top, so we'll do the top edge last. We'll start at the bottom, because the bottom looks very good. Yes, awesome, okay. So this corner matches with this corner right here. So we're going to bring them together. Try to line them up to where they meet just like before. Do the same thing like you did with the registration marks, trying to make sure that these two get as close as possible with each other. They do not have to be perfect, but the closest you get them to each other, the better. Slow and steady runs the race, and you want to make sure you're getting really smooth connections of these two edges. The smoother the connection, the less finishing you have to do later. The less finishing you have to do later means the faster you can wear this helmet. All right, I'm gonna bring it up close like this so you see what I mean. See how I'm trying to make these edges meet each other just at the top, also while slowly rolling the parts together. Foam is very malleable. You can get it moving just about any which way you want. All right, now we're gonna pinch that end right there. We're gonna push the foam together for all these seams. You're gonna go back up and down it a couple times, really press to make sure that these seams are connected. Now, you can see if you connect the bottom tail of the front part to the back, you can see where the earpiece is gonna be sitting in later. That's why I said we're not gonna be working on the ear just yet. We're gonna be doing that part second to last. And it's also why this is gonna be done second to last, because see how this part's curving and see how this part's already curved? These edges should meet nicely and form a nice edge. See that edge that's starting to form as you start getting those pieces together? Not quite perfect yet, but we're gonna get there. Okay, so I've taken the patterns that were the ones I cut out the right side, and I went ahead and flipped them over, and I labeled it left back helm and put all these extra registration marks. They're mirrored just like the other side, so then I can, just put this on top of another sheet of foam and get right at it. Now, you don't have to do this. The pattern does have the left and the right side, but I just do it this way because I like to try to save a little bit of paper. Let's get at it. Gonna get this sheet of foam that I had prepared a little bit earlier, and we are going to take all these parts and put them on here, and we're going to eventually add the jaw and the crusher on here as well, and then we'll be cutting out all the rest of the parts. So let's go.
We'll get back to crafting soon, but first let's talk about Suit Up's very first sponsor, Surfshark. Have you ever logged into a public Wi-Fi and kind of got a creeping suspicion that somebody was watching your stuff? Well, maybe you weren't entirely wrong. Did you know that 1 in 6 people have had online internet security breaches in the last year alone? But it's not limited to public Wi-Fi either. It can happen at work or at home, or maybe even at your favorite coffee shop down the road. One of the best ways to defend yourself is with a VPN. And I've used a couple before, but the best one I've used so far is Surfshark. It's fast, simple, and very easy to use, and it's the only VPN service to offer multiple connections across unlimited devices. So if you have a household with many different devices, Surfshark's great for you. I use Surfshark across all of my devices when I was out and about at my new job while trying to research all the stuff I needed to do for this video. It helped me find all these great articles and reference images for the projects we're working on today. With Surfshark, your IP address stays hidden. You can block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts. You can do so much more, all while protecting your personal data. You can easily log into a foreign version of Netflix or even HBO Max. Plus, if you're outside the United States, you can access some services only available inside the United States. It's a great service for expats looking to catch up on their favorite shows from home. Depending on your region, with Surfshark, you can get cheaper flights, cheaper hotel rates, or maybe even cheaper car rentals. You can also avoid country internet blockades. How do you think I got my Toy Tokusatsu fan club membership? Surfshark! And a Japanese bank account. That's besides the point. Anyways, look. Today, Surfshark and TheNextDecade are here to offer you a megalodon-sized deal. We are offering an absurd 82% off Surfshark's 2-year plan, plus an additional 2 months for free. That's less than $250 a month, or less than $30 a year. Along with bigger savings, Surfshark offers more than the competition. Unlimited devices, 2-factor authentication, ad blocking, and more. Keep your data safe. Protect all of your devices, enjoy an open internet, and spit in the face of people like Ajit Pai. Secure your platform, secure your digital life, protect yourself today by securing this deal from Surfshark and TheNextDecade. Check the description down below, or check out thenextdecade.co for more information. Thank you, Surfshark, for being our first sponsor. Now, let's get back to crafting.
Okay, so I have all my parts laid out. I still need to add all of my registration marks onto these, but before I peel these up and away, I want you all to remember, if you have one of these lines that has a highlighted mark, be sure to do it on the other side too. So you remember that this is an edge that you need to do a 45-degree angle inward cut on. And remember, always look at your pattern part before you actually cut your part. This way you will always remember, okay? So I got that one taken care of. Let's get rid of this left middle part taken care of. So remember, it's that part right there. This one right here is on the bottom as well. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish marking up all of these things and labeling all of them. And then we're gonna come back and start working on laying out the jaw parts. Okay, so now I'm gonna be cutting out the top crusher and the regular crusher, and I'm also gonna be cutting out the jaw piece. Now, don't cut the jaw piece out all the way just yet. If you're gonna cut out anything from it, just cut out the bottom first and cut out the chin part. Leave all this extra space on the top. So just focus on this edge, the chin, and leave the extra on top. If you take a look at the pattern, it says we're going to extend these edges to comfortably cover your jaw. I'll show you what I mean by that when we get there. So yeah, cut this out, cut the chin out, cut this bottom edge out, don't cut out the top. I'll be right back. Hey, I forgot about something kind of important I wanted to tell y'all with this top crusher. See this edge that has all these dotted lines, meaning to feather it? We're actually gonna be cutting those out, but we're gonna be feathering all of these edges off later. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut out this part, we're gonna trace it, and then we're gonna cut out the black line and then trace it back on there one more time. So remember how I said we want to extend these parts out? I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take your pen, you're going to figure out exactly how far more do you want these edges to point out. So all you're going to do is go from one point to another point. I'm going to extend this by ½ an inch to show you what I mean. So I'm going to get my ruler out. I'm going to find the perfect point where it says it's ½ an inch and it's right above this one edge. I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to do the same thing with the middle point. Those two lined up as close as I can. Set that right there. Now I'm going to get this down a little bit lower to get this lower point. So I'm going to keep lining this up as best I can with the top of the ruler and that little 5-inch mark on every single point, trying to keep this as 90 degrees as possible. Go up to the top, get this last one. We're gonna go down to this very, very bottom one. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna put it up ½ an inch. Now, you're gonna do it again. You're gonna rotate this last part. You're gonna measure to where ½ an inch is. You're gonna put a mark. And that's gonna be your final do not pass that point line. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna line these three up real quick and you're gonna put your ruler through it, put your pen through it, mark that line really good. And then you line this up with the bottom line. Now you have this whole edge that's been extended out. I'm gonna keep doing the same thing, gonna line these up as best as I can. I'm just gonna connect the dots. All right. See how I did it? I extended out all those edges with my pen. Now, see this middle line here where it says jaw? That dotted line, you're actually gonna fold that middle line. You get that as perfectly even as possible. Now, once you have this all folded over, try to line up these edges that you cut earlier as close as you can to each other. You wanna get this layout as flat as you possibly can get it. Now I want you to cut exactly on those lines. Starting on this edge first. You know, I'm gonna leave that little bit right there. That should be okay. But I'm gonna start here in the middle and get this spot real fast. Angle that up. Now, I don't know if I need this extended or not. I'm doing this just for y'all's sake. So if I end up feeling like I don't need it, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this all out again normally later, and then I'll put it right back onto that part, trace it out like normal, and then cut away any of the excess that I don't need anymore. But since I'm making this one a slip-on helmet, I want there to be just a little bit more room in between where my face sits behind it and where the helmet comes down over it. Now, if I did this right, hey, fully extended out part. Check that out. See what I mean?
That's how you extend it. You go 90 degrees up, you extend it however far you want it to go. You keep that number the same the whole way across until you get to a corner. Then you do one on this way, 90 degrees, and then you rotate the part and do it again, 90 degrees the other way. Comes out really nice and clean. Now I'm gonna go ahead and pre-fold these lines right here too, because these are gonna be V-cuts. And what's cool about this job piece is that we could cut this one out as is and put the lines right up on top of it. And once we get those lines on there, we can cut the V grooves as is, and then we can flip the part over and then the part will be done. We're gonna be doing the same thing with this too. We're gonna be taking this top crusher, we're gonna be tracing it down, and then we're gonna be cutting away this excess. And we're gonna be adding these lines with this pen and a Sharpie, so then we know where we need to go to feather, just like we are with this one too. The chin piece, it isn't necessary for you to do this. You could just fold it and then like fold the parts over and do your own lines. But this is gonna be a carved part for later, because they kind of have like a little cleft on their chin. Okay, so I have the job piece laid out right here, and as you can see, I took my pen here and I did some lines extending out where these V-cuts are. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to take off these pins and I'm gonna get my ruler out and I'm gonna finish out the rest of these so I know that's where my V-cuts are gonna be. And then I'm gonna show you how to be making actual V-cuts. Okay, so I have this part cut out. Now I'm gonna show you how to do a V-cut. It's really easy. You just need to make sure you have three things. Your straight edge, your knife, and a fresh blade for your knife, okay? Try to follow along with me as we do it. I made these lines so then we can cut through them. And then we're gonna make 2 more cuts, one on either side, going 45-degree angles to make a V shape on the inside, a valley cut, if you will. So I'm gonna take the ruler, get right up on it. Do not cut all the way through the foam. Score it. You just want to go halfway through the foam, okay? Halfway through. Not enough to cut through it, just enough to get through it. Not all the way through, just enough. You want to be able to make your foam open up like that. See how I've opened it up there? How it has that nice line on the other side of it now too. What you're going to do is you're going to follow that line again, but you're going to take your blade at a 45-degree angle, and the tip of your blade, you want it to meet the bottom of where this is scored into. So only halfway into the foam, you want to go halfway in. You're going to do a 45-degree angle cut towards it. Make sure you go all the way through. And you're going to bend one more time, and you're going to see where it is. Now, you might not have gotten all of it out. You can pinch and pull, but be careful doing this. You may end up pulling some material from the back of the foam that you don't want to get messed up. So here, I'm gonna show you real quick. Actually, no, I think that's good on that side. We're just gonna do that one on that side. So this isn't a complete V groove. This is a incomplete V groove, but it's still a good one. So here, we're gonna do the other incomplete one on this side, and then we'll do a full one, because I know this one will definitely need it in the middle. So this side, I'm gonna flip it over. It's always easier to cut V grooves with to the opposite direction of wherever your dominant hand is. My dominant hand's my right hand, so when I cut V's, I go this way usually. See what I mean? See how these angles are coming out like that now? We're gonna do one more in the middle and it should have its full shape. All right, this blade's already getting kind of dull. It's always a good idea to keep switching your blades around, especially why I use box cutters, so that I can just flip away quickly instead of having to constantly be grabbing a new blade or sharpening a new blade all the time. All right. Partly through, not all the way through, just enough. Get a bend to see what you're working with. That's a lot cleaner. I should have been using this blade cleaned a little bit sooner. All right, now we're gonna do a full V cut. I'm gonna go down. Make sure the tip of the blade's touching the bottom of where you made your first initial cut. You're gonna flip over the other side. You're gonna do your best to mirror exactly what you just did. Try to keep it as even as possible. 45 degrees, not 30, not 60, 45. This is supposed to come out to be a nice 90-degree angle. So now, you should be able to have these two little triangles of stuff. You should be able to pinch them, pull them away, and then bam. See how that bends right there in the middle now? Has a nice bend, and you grab those two parts. See how that already looks like Ichigo's jaw? Awesome, right? All right, so now I think what I'm gonna do, I think I'm gonna put some 45-degree angle cuts on this one. So that you don't forget, when you're looking at it, put it on the edge, not on the inside, just an edge, just a couple small little lines. Usually I wouldn't recommend this because you need to put the other glue on top, and sometimes the stuff inside markers can affect the glue. But since we're gonna be making these 45-degree angles, we're gonna be cutting all that away. So here, let's go ahead and do that. Just like your V cuts, you're gonna be doing a 45-degree angle cut towards the part. You could do this on just about any part that you've already cut out. Just do your best not to cut away the top edge. You wanna make sure you get your blade right up against it, not cutting anything away from the surface. Now, when I bend all these parts, this sits a lot nicer up against these edges. Now don't worry about any gaps or little nicks and things like that. We can definitely fix all that later with some quick seal, which is gonna be one of the last things we do with this project. So I'm gonna go ahead and transfer over all these registration marks to this side, and then we're gonna glue the chin on here, and then we're gonna glue the top crusher together. And then we were gonna get going on building the rest of the helmet all in one big fell swoop. Here we go. All right, so these V-grooves, I wanna make sure these stay together. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add a little bit of glue in between each edge right here, smash it together real quick so I know there's good coverage, and then we're gonna let it sit. We're also gonna glue this front part up here. We're gonna glue this part right here. Then, as we are doing these edges and getting them tight together, this glue should have been dried. This glue will be drying along with this one, and we should be able to put it together all rather quickly. Here we go. Okay, so I got a little overzealous with the glue, so I'm gonna let this dry for a minute. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to getting the crusher cut out. Hey, sorry about that. I actually recorded for about 15 minutes, or thought I recorded it. I actually forgot to hit start. My fault. But here, let me get you caught up on what you missed. So I put glue on the back of this jaw piece right here, and then I started putting the V-grooves together. Once those V-grooves were together, then I started adding the chin piece. I started on this face first by attaching it to the corner here, and then moved there, and then went from this corner right here and over to this corner right here. Then I was able to add these two side parts on really easily. So this came out really nicely. The next thing I did was I went back to the dome parts of the helmet, and I got these two little tail bits, and I attached them up at the front right there where they were supposed to be attached. So you can see where those two grooves are. So go ahead and catch up and do those parts real quick. Now, like I said earlier, I was gonna make the second dome, and I made the second dome. We have the jaw piece done right here. All we have to do now is get this centerpiece prepared, and then we can finally start gluing and assembling all of the rest of it. We're gonna be doing some Dremel work here in a little bit too. If you don't have a Dremel or some form of a rotary tool, I highly recommend you get yourself some sandpaper and some sticks. You're gonna glue some of that sandpaper to your sticks, and you're gonna sand instead of Dremeling like us. But you could do the same effect with some sandpaper if you don't have a Dremel. Okay, so this is the back of the center strip. I need to cut V-grooves here, here, and here, as well as this back part right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Now don't forget, on the very front of this, there are two V-cuts on the front. Right up here on the front, here and here. You gotta make sure you do those V-cuts, it's very important. The next thing I can't stress enough is that these parts overlap.
there's going to be a little bit of a tail at the end when you put these two parts together. That's okay. It's important to have that. It'll make sense later, I promise. So I'm gonna go ahead and start working on these cuts. And yeah, just regular V cuts. Nothing too crazy. You know what to do at this point. Follow along. Okay, so I finished doing the V cuts on the back. I made sure to do all my V cuts on the meatier part on the inside, so then these could fold over. I don't want to cut on the other side because there's a chance I can really mess up that edge. So if you take a look, as I pinch it now, and I bring this part down, it starts to look a lot more like that nose on the front of Kamen Rider, doesn't it? All right, I'm gonna do the last V cut on the back, and then I'm gonna apply some glue to this, and then to the domes. We're getting there, folks. Okay, so the glue's dried on the center part, so now I'm gonna glue these parts together on the back end and on the front. Then I'm going to Dremel and feather these edges. You'll see what I mean when we get there. I'm just gonna close these up really quickly. To where I'm satisfied with the connection. I gotta get this front part taken care of too. And there you have it, that front part's all done. We do the back real quick. And this part should be relatively easy. You may have to undo this later on. It really depends on how this all ends up sitting together, but for the most part, this should be okay. All right, time to get the Dremel out. Now, when you're working with your Dremel, your rotary tool, you want to use a grinding bit. I use a stone grinding bit. It's a barrel stone grinding bit. This is what it looks like right here. Now, if you don't have a rotary tool, you can use sandpaper. I recommend putting on a stick, gluing it to a stick, and just rubbing up against the same parts that we're going to be working. So feathering is the process of taking an edge, like a hard edge, like this part of the foam right here, that's a 90-degree angle on it, and knocking it down to where it's not so much of an edge and more of a rounded surface. Then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking these dome parts and we're going to be gluing them onto here, but this is going to be slightly raised up to where this is more like a stripe that's raising up and out of the helmet. Kind of like how it actually is on the real helmet. All right, so this gets noisy, so enjoy the music while I'm sitting here listening to for like 5-10 minutes. Okay, bye. All right, so you see I did one edge, and see how it's rounded compared to the rest of it? The other side's much more harsh. This side is much more rounded. You don't even need to go all the way down. Actually stop just before you get to those front V cuts you made earlier. Stop just before you get to there because these actually connect flat somewhere else. But these parts right here need to stay a little bit rounded, okay? Best way to do it, in my opinion, angle first, do an angle first. Quick, full stroke kind of passes. Then you're gonna do the top part and then the side part, and it should come off like a nice round edge. I'm gonna do it again on this really, really fast, and then we're gonna add glue to this, and we're gonna glue the domes together. Here we go. Now we have both these sides feathered. We're gonna glue these edges very quickly. And then since we have the Dremel out, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna feather this part, the top crusher, and the crusher. Then we're gonna glue these together too. All right, here we go. Okay. So I just Dremeled and feathered up all these edges on the teeth. I tried to rough them up and try to get them as close as I could to all those edges I painted onto the surface earlier. Just enough to where it gave it some tooth. Now I did the same thing with this part too. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna glue the back of this and we're gonna get these two lined up and attached together because these two actually fit together. All right. We're gonna glue these together and then we're gonna glue the domes. Here we go. All right, these are glued up. I'm gonna let these dry. I'm gonna start taking these two halves and start putting them together. So I'm gonna start at the back and we're gonna work forward from there. Now, the best way to know where it starts is this corner right here where my finger's moving meets up with that line where this V cut is. So these two meet and then you need to attach it to the registration point. Now, you wanna keep the dome slightly lower than the centerpiece. You wanna have that feathered edge you made sticking up and out. See how it's kind of like tiered a little bit? You wanna make that happen the whole way down. But still keeping up with those registration marks and still really pressing the foam into each part. You really wanna get these glue attached. A nice secure fit. You're rotating it around. Now I'm gonna be real with y'all. As I'm doing this part, it seems like it's a lot easier than you'd think. This is the easiest part. The next part is getting the next half on, and that's a lot harder because you're not gonna have as much room to play around as you did the first time. Try to get this attached just right. Come on. It's gonna fight you, but you just gotta fight it right back. Getting there. Now when you get down to the end, you want these two pieces to actually just line up like you would normally do your foam. This nose piece attached. Like I said, you gotta fight the foam a little bit, but once you do, you get it in there, it should line up nice and clean. Now, this little tail piece that's sticking up off the end of this centerpiece can be glued right onto there, okay? So I'm gonna do that last. First up is making sure that we got all of this dome attached as best we can. There's gonna be some issues with it later on. We might have to add some more glue. We might have to add another strip on the inside to help it get its shape back, but for the most part, this is it. All right, let's get this next half on. It's gonna be a little bit harder, start in the same place, keep moving forward. Okay, so let's take these two parts and put them together. You want to bend this one a little bit so it has a curve to it, just like how this one has a curve to it. And you want to line them up just like you did those tracings earlier, like I did those tracings earlier that I totally didn't do in front of y'all. Oh, my bad. Yeah, take this part and trace it on here before you do anything else, because I think the markings on the pattern never took into consideration what it would be like when it was curved. Man, that person who made that pattern is kind of dumb. He should have worked harder. But yeah, now to make sure that this edge is completely flat, you're gonna come back at it with your Dremel and flatten this out. All right, now I've flattened out all these edges right here. So this is gonna tack onto the bottom of the dome. So this part right here is actually gonna sit on the front of this part right here that goes under the dome. So it should go on something like that, closer to the center. But you see what I'm getting at. All right, hopefully the centerpiece has had long enough to dry and this has had long enough to dry. Let's get these pieces attached. See, we're getting there. It's coming along really nicely. All right, next step, we're gonna get these earpieces put in, and then we're gonna get the bottom parts put in. Then we're gonna add on this last part. All right. First, before we go any further, I need to show you some stuff how to do the ears. I already have one of them cut out, so I'm gonna cut out the next one now. When I cut out stuff that has lots of these little tiny V-cut things, I cut those parts first. Always start at the point and work out. Do the same thing on the other side. And be sure you're working with a very sharp, fresh blade. It'll make a lot of this so much easier. All right, once you got those 3 V's cut out, carefully cut out all the little tabs so they come out nice and clean too. Then start working on the bigger, longer stroke parts. Now on the pattern itself, it has a bunch of little lines. You could try things like the two blade method, which I might teach you guys a little bit later. That's a little bit more of an advanced technique. Or I could show you how we could do each one of these bits individually, but I want to show you guys the stair method. Now we need to do 2 things first. We need to put a line that goes from point to point in a curve on each of these, but on the inside parts of it. Then we need to cut away part of it on the top half that has more meat to it so we can glue all these edges together. Then we're gonna do another cut and we're gonna do what I call stair stepping. And that's all that is. It's kind of like how we did these parts offset where the center part is higher than the other one, but we're gonna do that once each time, making like a little staircase. So we have little stair steps. See how I got those little stair steps going on right there? We're gonna do the same thing, but on the other side with just 1 cut each time. All right, so we're gonna take our pen. And you're just using your best judgment from point to point to point to point to point. You're just gonna go straight across. You're gonna do 1 simple cut straight down, just like you're doing a V cut. This is essentially the same thing. And now you're gonna go onto the meatier side of it. You're gonna pull not too much away, just enough for it to make a nice curve. All right, so we're gonna pull away all this excess. Make sure you get as much of that excess out of there as you can. The more that's in there, it's gonna fill up more space and you don't want it to fill up all that space. All right, now it has a curve to it when you bend, okay? And that'll show up as a detail later on. All right, next we're gonna glue all these parts. So we're gonna glue the back, and then we're gonna glue all these little strips. Then we're gonna do some more cutting. All right, so both of these have been glued up. It's time to start putting them together. Start from the small point and start working back. Just focus on getting the parts attached towards the center first, and then we'll start focusing on what gets attached where. All right, starting from the front back, do halfway up the foam. Again, halfway up the foam. One more time. And also try to make sure these end pieces are trying to like meet too. So like always try to make sure this is all trying to make one flat flush surface. Even though you're trying to get this to be like a little stair step, you still want the edge to be flat. See, I'm still able to make each one of my little stair steps, but this edge is also flat. Now, you're gonna do the same thing on this side. You're gonna try to make V's going the other direction. Try not to get too wild with it. Just break it up enough to where you can separate, so then we can put more glue in and then stair step those as well. All right, so this is how I'm gonna do it. I'm laying mine kind of flat. V, try to keep it kind of equidistant. I'm not trying to cut too far into the center part because I really want to try to keep those the same. All right, now I'm gonna add glue, and then we're just gonna stair step these just the same way as we did the other side, okay? Cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and add glue on now and get started doing that part. Okay, so I just glued this side up. Now I'm gonna let this dry while I work on this part. All right, now this one's drying right here, so I'm gonna let that dry while I work on this one, but this one's almost ready to go. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did last time. Start with the start at the front and stair step, and try to keep it completely even on the edges where it's gonna meet the rest of the helmet. There we go, completely stair stepped. And all these edges are completely smooth. Now I can glue all these edges, all of these edges, and the tail of the front and attach all of it together, and it'll look really nice. We'll still have to do some more cleaning work later, maybe some stuff with the Dremel, or maybe a sanding stick, but we'll get there when we get there. I'm gonna wait for this one to dry. I'm gonna go ahead and start gluing up all these sides. All right, ears are all glued up on this side. These ears are all glued up. Now we just gotta wait for the glue to dry. Cut. What are you doing? Come on, editor. All right, so now I'm gonna start putting the first ear in. I'm gonna start with the bottom tail so I have some more control over this as I start placing it. So now what you wanna do is you wanna try to keep it, like I said, every edge as close to the next edge as possible. Try to keep it as flush as possible. The more flush you make it, the less work we have to do later to clean this up. Now this is really gonna curl that tail. You really want to get this super in there nice and tight. And make sure this tail is like in a good area for you to control. Next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna try to get this point onto that point and then line this all up. It's gonna be a little bit tricky. I recommend bending this part back and then placing it gently into the back corner. Okay, now you're gonna support it with your hand. Try to clean it up, get right up on this edge, right up on that edge, right up on that edge, the whole way down. Now, if something pops, it's okay. We can go back in and fix it again a little bit later with some super glue. This edge right here isn't working out too great for me. See how this hole popped up for me a little bit right there? We're gonna fix that with super glue later. All right, now the back point, same thing. Try to get it nice and lined up and even with all of the marks. All right, last part. And this is when you finally attach the back tail from the front of the helmet to the back of the helmet. Now, if you look really carefully, see all that detail you just got right there on the side of that helmet, how it curves it all out, but also still gives it that cool like slashes on the back of Ichigo's ears? Check that out. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but we're gonna make it look a lot better a little bit later when we're finishing this part. But really, take a minute to appreciate that. If this is really your first time making a helmet, like, that's not easy to do, and you just did it. And like the nose too, like, you're learning a lot of steps that are gonna make a lot of future projects a lot easier. So if you haven't already, go ahead and like this video, add it to your favorites, or make a cosplay page or a cosplay playlist. And on that cosplay playlist, save it as one of your favorites and come back to this, because I want this to be one of the videos where you keep coming back to learn the basics as we keep moving forward and I start teaching you some more advanced tricks and tips. All right. Well, you saw how we did it the first time. I'm gonna do it one more time with the left side, and then we're gonna start putting on the last parts of the top dome. Here we go. All right, so we have most of the top dome done. It's looking really nice, isn't it? If you've gotten this far, really proud of you. Not a lot of other people get this far when it comes to making props and costume stuff. Even if it's coming out a little bit janky and bumpy, keep it up.
don't stop. Please don't stop. My first projects didn't come out the best either, but you'll get there. I assure you. And if you keep watching the videos, I assure you you'll keep getting better too. So here's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna glue all of these edges. We're gonna glue up the sides, and then we're gonna glue the outside edges and this edge, but not this inside curve edge of these parts. And we're gonna attach them to the helmet. That will complete the dome. Then we just need to add this part. And then we are done with all of our foam fabrication. We'll just have to do some very light dremeling, and then we'll have to do some quick sealing. Then we can get onto sealing, and then adding on to my pieces, painting this bad boy up, and adding all the other accoutrements. So here we go.
All right, so on the nose piece, I'm gonna be adding a line right in the dead center. This is gonna be my kind of guide mark for where these two parts will connect and meet. They're gonna attach to the back center part, loop around the back, and then attach into the front. We want them to attach nicely. We might need to cut a little bit away. We'll see when we get there. All right, here we go, home stretch. All right, the dome is complete. Now we got one more thing we need to add to this, and it's the first part of the jaw, which is the crusher. What you're gonna do is you're gonna line this up with the nose. See those two lines, how they all match up right there? And how there's also line up with the rest of the registration marks? That's what you're aiming for. And you want eventually for these teeth to slowly go back and merge with the back curve of this part of the helmet right here. I'm sorry, this part right here. Whoops. Anyways, so yeah, this is gonna attach right there. So let's go ahead and glue it. All right, now we have that attached. Now if you see, you can put the jaw piece in there. And there's your Kamen Rider mask. All right, so it's not quite perfect yet. We have some more work we need to do, but we'll get to that next. We gotta do some dremeling, then we gotta do some heat gunning, then we gotta do some quick sealing, and then we just gotta get it ready for painting. After painting, then we're gonna start focusing on getting the eyepieces made. If you made it this far, it's the home stretch, folks. We are almost done, so hang in there. Let's go! Come on, that's so cool. Come on, look at it. You did that, we're doing it. Let's go, 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 okay, bye. All right, if you're following along at home, you should have something along the lines of this, the jaw piece and the helmet. Sure, mine looks a little bit different, but that's because I might have something special planned for the very end of all this. Next time on Suit Up, we're gonna be finishing up with heat sealing, quick sealing, and plasti dipping this, and then moving on to some painting. All right, get your brushes ready and go grab yourself some FX paint, because you're gonna need it. All right, everyone, I'll catch you back here next time on Suit Up.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on when the next episode is posted. Also, we now have membership options for anyone who is interested in sneak peeks for upcoming videos, behind the scenes, and some early patterns. We're also playing with the idea of bringing back streams for members only. If any of that sounds up your alley, click those buttons down below. Also, if you're following along at home, be sure to show us your progress. Use hashtag SuitUp on social media. We may feature your work on the show. See you next time!
See, what I did was I did a front stand with my mouth. It's comedy. If I do it 3 times, oh man, that's rule of 3. Big comedy, big smart.